The Crown You Fix, How Self Love Transforms Generations. When we talk about self love, we often frame it as something deeply personal, a private journey, an individual pursuit. But what I've discovered through my profound conversation with Lashawn Irvin, a visionary healer whose work has transformed the lives of countless domestic violence survivors, is something far more revolutionary. Self love isn't just about you, it's an act of generational healing that ripples through families, communities, and future generations. LaShawn Irvin's brilliance lies in her ability to see beyond conventional wisdom. Where others see individual trauma, she recognizes the interconnected web of healing that spans generations. Her work has not only saved lives, but has fundamentally altered how we understand recovery from domestic violence. She is, without exaggeration, changing the narrative around trauma healing for Black women and their children. Today, I want to challenge what we think we know about self love, especially for Black women who have survived domestic violence while raising children. Because when you fix your crown after trauma, you're not simply reclaiming your own power. You're modeling resilience and wholeness for your children in real time. Think about it. We've all heard the airplane safety instructions: put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. Yet in life, especially after trauma, we're expected to do the opposite, to keep giving when we're depleted, to stay strong when we're breaking, to prioritize everyone else's healing before our own. But what if that approach is fundamentally flawed? What if, by neglecting our own healing, we're actually limiting how much we can help those we love most? This is the counterintuitive truth I want to explore today, that the most selfless thing a mother can do after experiencing domestic violence is to prioritize her own healing. That self love becomes not an act of indulgence, but an act of profound generosity toward future generations. Let me share three key insights that emerged from my conversation with LaShawn Irvin that challenge how we think about healing from trauma. First, healing is fundamentally communal. We've been sold this narrative that overcoming trauma is a solitary journey, something you do alone, perhaps with a therapist, but ultimately by yourself. This individualistic approach to healing places an impossible burden on survivors, especially those raising children. The reality: overcoming domestic violence while raising children requires building robust support systems. It means leaning on community resources and refusing to do it alone. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Consider the story of Lynette Lashawn, who recently celebrated the 15-year anniversary of her first business as a Black woman entrepreneur. When I first heard Lynette's story, I was struck by her candor about the darkness she had to navigate. She faced not only systemic barriers as a business owner, but also deeply personal challenges that threatened to derail everything she'd built. There were days, she told me, when I couldn't see past the pain, when getting out of bed felt impossible, when the weight of what I'd experienced made success seem like a fantasy. But Lynette didn't isolate herself in her pain. She leaned into community. She sought mentorship. She practiced self love, not as a solitary act, but as something nourished through connection. Starting from humble beginnings with limited resources, Lynette built multiple ventures by focusing on mindset shifts following difficult periods in her personal life. Her businesses thrived not despite adversity, but because she approached healing as a communal practice. I had to learn, she said, that asking for help wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing I could do for myself and my children. Today, Lynette helps redefine what success looks like for Black women entrepreneurs, resilient leaders who heal themselves as they build wealth. Her story illustrates that healing doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community, in relationship, in the spaces between us. The second insight challenges how we think about our painful experiences. We often want to bury our trauma to move past it as quickly as possible. But what Lashawn Irvin's work reveals is that your story can fuel your purpose. The pain of surviving domestic violence can transform into purpose driven leadership in business and life. Dr. Tony exemplifies this transformation. Having spent over 25 years in biopharma while empowering others, Dr. Tony navigated corporate space as a Black woman leader while dealing with personal transformation needs stemming from past trauma. I remember sitting across from Dr. Tony, watching her eyes fill with tears as she recounted her journey. For years, she said, I compartmentalized my pain. I was one person in the boardroom and another person at home. I thought that was strength. But a breaking point came when she realized that fragmenting herself was actually limiting her impact. Rather than hiding her pain, she integrated it into her leadership approach. She focused on inner work, embraced faith based practices, what she calls fixing the crown, and began mentoring other professionals through workshops centered on healing leadership wounds. After encountering professional glass ceilings intertwined with unhealed personal pain, Dr. Tony redirected toward holistic empowerment strategies. The result? She developed programs that help other women find their voice and purpose post trauma. She's now recognized industry wide as an advocate for transformative leadership rooted in authenticity. When I stopped hiding my scars, she told me, I started healing others just by being honest about my journey. By sharing her story openly, she inspires others to rise above their circumstances. Her vulnerability became her superpower. This brings me to the third and perhaps most radical insight. Self love rebuilds legacy. We often think of legacy as something we create through our achievements, our career, our external contributions. But what if our most important legacy is how we heal? Prioritizing self care isn't selfish, it's how we repair generational wounds and teach our children what healthy love looks like. When a mother who has experienced domestic violence commits to her own healing, she's not just changing her life, she's altering the trajectory of her family for generations to come. The United Way of Washtenaw County understood this ripple effect when they shifted their approach to supporting organizations serving marginalized communities affected by trauma. During a conversation with their leadership team, I learned how they recognized that many local organizations supporting survivors lacked sustained funding, tools, or peer networks. Rather than providing short term aid, they invested deeply in capacity building. They provided grants, created peer learning circles, and offered technical assistance focused on wellness and organizational health. One program director told me, we realized we were asking these organizations to heal communities while they themselves were running on empty. We had to change our approach. The outcomes were transformative. Nonprofits reported stronger staff well being and improved outcomes among families served, including mothers and children recovering from domestic violence. This approach, recognizing that healing must be supported at multiple levels, helped stabilize dozens of grassroots organizations and created new best practices around trauma informed service delivery. The impact extended far beyond individual survivors, showing how investing in collective healing empowers entire communities. As one survivor put it, for the first time, I felt like my healing mattered not just for me, but for everyone around me. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds powerful in theory, but how does it work in practice? What does it actually look like when a mother prioritizes her healing while still caring for her children? It looks like setting boundaries, teaching children that no is a complete sentence and that respecting limits is part of healthy love. It looks like naming emotions, showing children that feelings aren't something to fear, but something to understand and process. It looks like asking for help, demonstrating that strength isn't about doing everything alone, but about knowing when to reach out. It looks like pursuing joy, modeling that healing isn't just about escaping pain, but about embracing pleasure and possibility. And perhaps most importantly, it looks like forgiveness, not of the abuser necessarily, but of yourself. Forgiving yourself for staying too long, for not seeing the signs, for the ways trauma has shaped your parenting. This self forgiveness becomes a template for your children. It teaches them that mistakes don't define us, that healing is possible, that transformation is always available. What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it challenges the very foundation of how we think about motherhood, especially for Black women who have historically been expected to sacrifice everything for others. The strong Black woman trope has been both a source of pride and a prison, setting impossible standards that leave no room for vulnerability, for rest, for healing. But strength isn't about enduring pain indefinitely. True strength is having the courage to heal, to face your wounds, to say, I deserve better, and so do my children. When Lashawn Irvin speaks about fixing your crown, she's talking about reclaiming your dignity, your worth, your right to be treated with respect. And when you fix your crown in front of your children, you're showing them what self respect looks like in action. You're breaking cycles of violence, not through lectures or lessons, but through living differently, through loving yourself enough to demand better, through creating boundaries that protect your peace and, by extension, theirs. This is how generational healing happens, not in grand gestures, but in daily acts of self love that accumulate over time, creating new patterns, new possibilities, new futures. So I challenge you today, how will you fix your crown? Not just for yourself, but for all who are watching you, learning from you, inheriting your patterns of self love or self neglect. If you're a survivor, your healing isn't just about you, it's the most powerful gift you can give your children. It's permission for them to heal too. If you love someone who survived trauma, ask not what they can do for others, but how you can support their healing journey, knowing that when they heal, everyone around them benefits. And if you work in systems serving survivors, how might you reimagine support that honors the profound connection between individual healing and collective transformation? The revolution begins not in the streets, but in our hearts, in our homes, in the quiet moments when we choose ourselves, knowing that this choice ripples outward to touch everyone we love. Fix your crown, not just for yourself, but for generations yet unborn who will inherit either your wounds or your wisdom, choose healing, choose love, starting with yourself. The world is waiting.